Okay, so a study is kind of, I guess the study is saying or suggesting that infidelity may be contagious. And so I'm not going to bore you with their 3 isolated studies that they did. I'm going to read you a little paragraph, maybe of one of them. But basically, they did 3 different studies, and they put all undergraduates. So it would be college students and grad school students in these tests. So you're looking at a young age group here. But they put them through a different series of tests. And basically what they came out with is this, that the research took these results to mean that the exposure to the infidelity of others makes people less likely to commit to their current relationships and more likely to seek other partners. And so what I got out of it is when you're around other people and they are normalizing or talking about being in other relationships or cheating on their boyfriend, girlfriend, or a spouse, then other people in that circle are more likely to be involved in that. It's not for sure that that'll happen, but it can negatively influence you. So to me, it's like one of these other studies. We had one maybe 5 weeks ago, and it seems to just agree with what you learned growing up as a kid. Mm-hmm. Good traditional values, be careful who you hang out with. I can remember a pastor saying one time, look at your 5 closest friends, and that's the direction your life is likely going to go.
Yeah.
That stuck with me for a long time. Like, oh my goodness, I've got some messed up friends. No, they weren't. They're actually pretty good. They were kind of goofy and funny, but
that makes sense.
Yeah. So,
adds up.
So yeah, what do you guys think about that? Does that, probably not shocking in some ways, but what are your thoughts on that? That the people that you hang around, if you're around a group of people that maybe celebrate this kind of lifestyle, they're talking about cheating on their spouses or whoever they're dating, that might make you or us more inclined to consider that. Pretty scary stuff.
Mm-hmm. I don't know anybody like this, which is very nice to say, but it's not that shocking to me, really, because, like you said, the people who you spend your time around, those people influence a lot of your life, more than you even probably want them to. Yeah. But the other thing that I think comes into play is when you see somebody not paying the consequences for their action, it makes you feel a little more maybe risky, like, mm-hmm. hey, I could probably do the same thing and not suffer the consequences, because whether it's right or wrong, but you also know that there are consequences if you get caught. But when other people aren't getting caught and they're okay with it, then I think people are like, yeah, I'm not as risk averse maybe as I once was to something like this.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's good. I was looking this up, and I don't know if this is verifiable, but I saw it on 2 or 3 different sites. 20% of married men have admitted through these, I guess, different surveys to cheating on their wives, and 13% of women have admitted. So that's the general. Mm-hmm. But then I saw that when you include everyone that's within of age of dating. So not just married, 46% of people that are old enough and have dated have cheated on their significant other. So, I mean, it goes way up before marriage, but still 20%, 2 out of 10, and a little over 10% of women. That was actually a little bit surprisingly low. It's sad to say. I was thinking that maybe those percentages were a little bit higher than that. So,
But I kind of agree with Allie, and you've already stated it, but it goes back to, like, if you, the article is definitely, when you sent it to us, we were like, oh boy. And David's reaction, I think, was the best. So what I get from this article is that people suck.
Yeah, people suck.
But, so the article is specifically talking about infidelity, right? And but the reality is, and you've kind of touched on it, is who you're around impacts you. And so, whatever they're doing, whether it's infidelity, whether it's language, whether it's stuff that they're consuming, whether that's food or movies that they watch or TV shows that they watch, it all impacts you, and it is contagious, and so that's why we do express so wholeheartedly, especially in the church, that you need to really be careful who you associate with, and you need to really be careful who you're around, because you may not think that their decisions are going to impact you, right? Like Paul says, be like the Gentile, but don't get caught up in what the Gentile gets caught up in. That's the warning that people ignore when they say, well, Paul says I'm supposed to be like these people in order to reach them. Yeah, you're supposed to really pay more attention to the second half of that warning. And so you need to be careful. And flip side, what if you're the person, right? What if you're the person that has these bad habits? You're negatively influencing the people you're around. Yeah. So you can sit there and think, oh, my sin doesn't impact anybody besides me all day long. That's just not true. It's just not true. And so what you do does impact the people around you. So this is kind of a two-edged sword here that I absolutely wholeheartedly agree with.
Yeah, and this would go with any kind of bad habit or, what we would call a sinful lifestyle or indulging in something to an excess. The people that you're around will definitely influence you with that. Doing a lot of premarital counseling with couples, we always talk about boundaries and how to keep safe boundaries. And one of the stories that I use often is when we lived in Colorado, and I don't think I've shared this story before, so stop me if I have, but when Sydney was in basketball, we'd be traveling all the time to go see basketball games, down in Denver, which was an hour away, all over the place. And I had a mom of another child just say, hey, Alan, I know you're going to the game. Can I just hop in the car with you and go down to Denver? And in nervousness, I was just like, yeah, sure, no problem. And I turned around and thinking, oh my goodness, I broke a rule, that Ashley and I have that we would not do something like that. So I immediately, when I got home, I just Ashley, I just did something so dumb. I broke our rule. I told so-and-so.
She's like, what did you do?
Yeah, I said, I told so-and-so.
The list could be so long.
So-and-so that she could ride down to the car with me. And some of you may be listening to this and like, this is ridiculous.
What an old man.
But listen to this, if you're questioning this. So anyway, so I had to call her back up. I was embarrassed. I'm like, great. Because Ashley was like, you got to call her and tell her that you're not going to be able to do that. And I'm like, I can't lie about it and say, I'm sorry, I'm not going because I'm going to watch my daughter play in that basketball game. And so I had to call and explain to her the rule that Ashley and I had. I just felt a little embarrassed about that. It's just like, she was really nice about it. Well, about a year later, she came up to me, and this was after a separation that she had with her husband. They went to counseling and they were not Christians, but they went to a church and went to counseling, and he ended up meeting with a counselor alone. It was a female counselor, ended up having an affair and leaving his wife for that relationship. And she came to me, she said, you remember when you told me about your rule? She goes, I thought you were crazy. And she told me exactly what had happened. And she goes, now I understand why you do what you do, and I respect that. And so that was just a reminder. And the reason why we have these rules is because we're susceptible just like anyone else. Yeah. I mean, just look at the news and see what happens with pastors. It's like every other month it seems like another pastor has fallen. So, it's not like, hey, we're better. It's like, no, we're fallible too. We can be tempted, and therefore we are keeping good boundaries.
Stay above reproach. Don't even put yourself in a situation where someone could accuse or claim or suspect. I was going to actually ask, to bring a little levity back in. Did that happen to coincide with the season when you started bulking up?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Ashley, we got to talk about these boundaries again.
She's like, that's it. You're going to start eating.
Right, let's
make sure you're not
these.
attractive to any woman.
I think, go ahead. You go, pal.
Sorry. I was going to say, I think that kind of shows the importance of, especially for those that are married, of being really open with, one, your weaknesses, and two, when you have sinned and fallen short. Not necessarily like to the way end of the spectrum of like actually being like cheating on your spouse, but just being like open of like, hey, I struggle with this and I need your help. Yeah. And we need to help me set boundaries to help me protect me from myself. Yeah. And that might sound crazy to people, but honestly, like good relationships come out of that. And I think just that trust that you build with someone to the ability of like, they know you and they know your weaknesses and they can help.
Yeah. Yeah. I've talked to 2 couples within the last 6 months, and both of them were the girls in the relationship where they were being honest with their whoever they were dating or engaged to, that they had struggled a little bit with, a conversation they had with a guy and just admitting it. And I had to remind the guy, because at first you're kind of crushed, like, oh my goodness, this person has been tempted by someone else besides me. And for a guy, especially, that can be kind of crushing when you hear that. But I had to remind him, look, I mean, the great thing is that she shared it with you. You ought to feel pretty confident that, I can remember that happening with Ashley and I. We'd been married for a year, and we were actually getting ready to go overseas to be missionaries overseas, going through training. And she admitted that, hey, there's a couple, and she noticed kind of their level of intimacy within that relationship, just in the way that they were engaging one another. She said, Alan, I'm just going to be honest. Like, I look at what they have, and I kind of like a little jealous of that. And she was basically kind of telling me, hey, our intimacy level isn't where it needs to be, and that affection. And I was just like, at first it kind of floored me. But then I just got to thinking, you know what? I'm so glad that she was willing to say that. Mm-hmm. And there's not a relationship out there, I don't care who it is, where we're not susceptible to something like that. Yeah. So
that's kind of what I was going to say, is just, I would say hate, but it feels a little strong. I really strongly dislike when the response to you trying to be above reproach is, oh, well, so you don't trust your significant other. It's like, no, I fully trust them. Yeah. But when I get into that mindset that could never happen to me, right. I'm more susceptible to that happening. Absolutely. Because when I think I'm above that, then pride sets in, and then it's all downhill from there. And so I feel like prideful people fall faster too. Yeah. And so it's just better to, like you said, just be above reproach. And I'm frustrated by David and I's generation, because I said this earlier as a joke, but like, you old man, whenever you were saying something like that, because I do think a lot of people our age see it that way. Yeah. And I know we make fun of political leaders for this and all kinds of things, but that is very frustrating to me, because I mean, studies show like this stuff is contagious. Sin is contagious. And so
temptation is real.
Yeah. It's not wrong for me to want better in my marriage, and that just the response that you sometimes get can be very frustrating. Yeah. We got to be better. Like you said, humans suck.
So just, and
we suck worse together.
Right.
Yes. That was Alan's response.
Yeah, it was.
Somehow we're worse together, but also better together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
don't go and become a xenophobe and just sit there and not talk to anybody else. Like, you still need people.
So, and I think the encouragement for everyone is just look at who you're hanging out with. It really does matter. For parents, it's not a bad thing for you to encourage your kids to hang out with other healthy kids. Mm-hmm. And I know that we get a bad rap for that, and our kids don't always understand that. But watch who your kids are hanging out with. As adults, watch who you're hanging out with. Just two verses. Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. That's out of Proverbs. And another one, make no friendship with a man. This one's about anger, but it's the same truth. Make no friendship with a man given to anger, nor go with a wrathful man, lest you learn his ways and entangle yourself in a snare. So we're influenced by other people's actions. So there you go.
I do think this article is very interesting on the fact that it can spring on this conversation, but also reading through the article, I don't know if you all felt this, but it felt like they're being like the people who are doing the study were like very predatory.
Yeah.
With the fact that they were like knowingly trying to get them to be like cheat on their spouse.
That's psychology.
Right. Yeah.
That's what you do as a psychologist.
I was like, well, they set up the whole thing of the messenger and like the instant messenger platform, and then their profile picture was an attractive person to the opposite sex. Mm-hmm. And then like they were using these trigger words of like, and trying to get people to do this. And so I felt that was really weird.
Yeah. Hopefully they circle back around. Yeah. You know what I mean? That can do some damage to a young relationship or whatever. And all these were like dating relationships of 4 months to a year type of a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like we justify like, oh, they were just dating. So it's better them than, but actually it is better than.
But it's pretty interesting to see how easily we can be tempted through that.
Yeah.
Just even through a instant messaging thing that most likely the person on the other end is not even real.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so like for how we were talking about how easily we can be ensnared with this stuff, and we should have boundaries, even more so because there is I feel like not necessarily a world trying to like prowl on us, but not necessarily not trying to do that. Especially with you looking at like how free social media has become with like what they're allowing to post and things like that, how easily you can find bad things online,
right?
Even on just Instagram and Facebook. And so it's even more so in our world now today to have those boundaries. Because I know sometimes where like I've just had to delete Instagram because it's just constantly being bombarded with stuff.
Right.
And so it's good to have that, especially being married, having that partner to have the accountability there.
Absolutely.
And, but even if you aren't married, find accountability with that because it's so easy, especially nowadays.
Yeah, it's a good word.